morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning.
Answer your question, I'm Ron Strobel, Sergeant at Arms. We're starting a little late this morning because you do have to realize that it's only 4:30 in California. I'm trying to recover from 90-degree heat in California and all that stuff, but here I am. Dedication. Invocation this morning is by Jim Young.
Morning, breakfast lovers.
Good morning, Jim.
According to our schedule, this should be the day that Jimmy Supplin's up here. So I'd like us to all keep him in our minds and our prayers. And I have a prayer that he gave me some time ago. Since St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, I'm going to have an old Irish prayer. Find wisdom in work, it is the price for reward. Find strength in thought, it is the path to wisdom. Find creativity in dreams, it brings the blessings of diversity. Find joy in play, it connects the generations. Find time to read, it is the foundation of understanding. Find happiness in friendship, it is the road to joy. Find time to greet one another, it's good for the soul. Find time to observe life, life is too short to be selfish. Find warmth in love, it leads to fond heart. Find time for laughter, it's healthy for all of us. And all God's people said, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jim. To lead us in the pledge and four-way test this morning, Evan McCauley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Four-way test. First.
Is the truth.
Second.
Is fair to all concerned.
Third.
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
Fourth.
Will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you, Evan. And now to lead us in song, Dick Pearsall.
All the things going around, I think we need a little moral support, and I'd like to hear your best song, God Bless America. All right. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. Let it go. God bless America, my home sweet home. 2, 3, 4. God bless America, my home sweet home. You didn't disappoint me.
Thank you, Dick. And now to lead us this morning is our somewhat past president, Gail Royster.
Somewhat. Fast.
He doesn't know how far back. Anyway, good morning, Rotarians. And what a pleasure it is to be once again in front of this awesome club. We are going to ask our secretary, Chris Barker, to please introduce our guest this morning.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning.
I would like to announce our guests, and if they could please stand up so we can give them a nice greeting. We have members of the Hudson Service Learning class. We have Lonnie Banner, Vanessa Nahn, Marty Bach, and Allison Rentz, again helping us on AV. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
And then we have our speaker, Cindy Newton from the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland.
Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you for visiting with us today.
And thank you, Chris. I would like to ask several Rotarians who participated in the recent and still ongoing Service Learning Government class up at the high school, where various topics were presented by students on bills that they would like to present to a congressional committee. It was really very, very interesting. Jim Ahern, James Field, and Den Rich If you would come up and maybe share a little bit about what the specific topic was that you participated in and your reaction to it. Dan, you're at the table first.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you, Service Learning, for inviting us in. This was a very interesting session we had just yesterday, and a team from the Service Learning class presented legislation for the state of Ohio, in this particular instance, to legalize marijuana. And the really interesting part was what Marty Bach said at the very end of it. Hey guys, this is after an hour of argument and decision between the students. It's not the bill itself, it's not the purpose, it's the process, the way you get there that is so difficult. And that really registered. These kids were learning a great deal. Of course, they're great kids anyway, as you know.
I don't want to duplicate what Den said, but I was there for 3 subjects. First one was global warming, and Allison was one of the leads on that, so they did a good job. And the second one was student security, and the third one was gender-neutral bathrooms. And so you can see there's the opportunity for roaring discussion that went on during the debate. And I agree. Marty Bach, we were talking after the other day, and he said something that made me think, and that was kids today, they have a smartphone and they can look up in 2 seconds how to pass a bill. So, okay, you learn how to pass a bill. But if you ask a senator or a congressman, how do you pass a bill? They're going to talk about the kind of things that goes on in that room, the discussion, the debate, to prepare yourselves. And I have to give credit for all 3 groups that they did a fantastic job of doing homework. They handed out what their positions were, what they wanted to pass. And 2 out of 3 passed. Let me see, global warming passed, right? Passed. The gender neutral bathrooms passed, which was a bill that was put in front of the state to start all new construction have to put in a gender-neutral bathroom, which isn't only for based on the transgender folks, but also for handicapped and other things like that. So it was great learning, and I got to say that the kids were not only prepared for their own stuff they presented, but they did a great job of handling a variety of pushback that came from the audience, and that was the fun part, and I think the real learning part.
I'll just say I was really impressed. The subject of the bill that I went to was school funding, and it was federal funding of schools. So it seems like each of us got a topic that's near and dear to our hearts.
Gender neutral bathroom.
So anyway, but I will echo so the proposal actually had 3 parts. The first part was the federal government would give a flat reimbursement of $11,500 to every school district. The school districts can only spend that on educational matters, so there was a reporting requirement for that. And then districts did not have to take this money, and so the third part of the bill was to encourage districts to do it. If they didn't take it, they would take away their Head Start funding. And so the research that the students had done into it, none of these weren't arbitrary numbers. They had done a lot of research. They talked to Catherine Sines, they talked to people in the schools, and not only interesting in the presentation of it, but also the questions were excellent. And there was a lot of questions about how it would be funded, but also questions on the Head Start requirement. People were like, well, kids were like, well, we don't think you should take away Head Start funds. And they're like, well, we don't really want to take them away. It was just a way to encourage it. But that was actually voted down because they did not want that threat out there. So it was really impressive, and especially so those of us who work with legislators on state and federal level. It was nice to see a presentation where the proposed legislation was based on research and what they thought was best for the subject, in this case was education. And the questions were also related to that in terms of would this funding help or hurt education. Unfortunately, those of us who worked with legislators, you often find there's other considerations that go in terms of what groups are for or against particular legislation and so forth. So this was very refreshing, and actually I encourage the kids, once they graduate, if they just go and run for these offices, it would really improve the state. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. I also was able to participate, and I just want to say what a privilege it is that we have such a great relationship with the service learning class, because the involvement of just regular people in the community of all ages and backgrounds and being able to interact with the high school seniors is really very, very special relationship. The particular topic when I attended was student mental health, and it really had to do with the tremendous pressure that high school kids feel today, pressure on grades, pressure to be the best in their sports, in their music, or whatever they're involved in. And some of the options in the bill that was presented was, of course, to reduce homework and to have perhaps the teachers somehow coordinate who's assigning what days so that it didn't all get loaded, you know, on one particular night. I thought it was interesting that one of the students was brave. First of all, I thought it was interesting that all the students felt very comfortable saying exactly what was in their heart in the classroom. And Brian Wilch happened to be there the time I was there, so they're saying all these things in front of the school principal as well as their teacher. And one of them raised his hand and said, well, now let's put this in perspective. You know, you get out of school at what, 2:30, and you do this and you do that, and you have your sports, and then you go home and you have dinner, and then you know, then there's a couple of TV shows you watch. So yeah, you don't start your homework till 10 o'clock. So I think really that was an exception, but at least, you know, he had the courage to say that. So anyway, it was a wonderful time, and thank you for allowing us to participate, Marty. I certainly enjoyed it, and I know these gentlemen did, and Ron's going to be there Thursday, I believe. Yep, so and it ends this week. Okay, speaking of service learning, let's ask the service learning people to come up to the podium and share with us what their activities have been for the past month or two or this semester. Lonnie Banner.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope your lives are wonderful. I hope things are going well, and I think Friday is our first day of spring. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. Thanks again for coming out to assist with our government class. We really, really value your feedback and your input. Our students can't become better people without you, so thank you. And on that note, two of our most fantastic students are Alice and Vanessa, and they're going to be here to talk to you a little bit about their service this semester. So, Vanessa, would you like to go?
Hi everyone, as Ms. Banner said, I'm Vanessa Nahn, and I'm in the service learning program. And last semester I was at the Kent Head Start, and this semester I'm here at Laurel Lake actually. So I come on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for about 3.5 hours each day. And I basically just assist the residents in whatever they would need like my help with, and I really try to make a relationship with them, because that was one of my goals coming in this semester, was to try to expand my horizon and try to meet new people and hear their stories and hear what they have to say, which is a really exciting thing for me, and I really, really enjoy it. Some of the residents here are lonely and don't really have some visitors because of the amount of people here, and it's my job to kind of say hi and ask how their day is going and try to build a relationship with them. And communication is really important for them, because a lot of them just want their story told and they just want somebody to talk to and ask how your day is going, and they really want to know about you too, which is really awesome, because I love to be able to build a relationship with them. And I have a couple stories. One of them is I started meeting with a resident first week here, and she just asked me to play a game called Rummy Cube with her, which is really fun if you ever get the chance to play it. I really enjoy it. So I played with her, and then I came back every week, and now I visit her every week. I try to do Tuesday and Wednesday, but sometimes I just do one day. And we just talk about our lives, and she tells me about her husband and her life and growing up and all the things that she wanted to do and where she went to college and all that stuff. So it's really, really cool to be able to have that person to meet with every day, and I really enjoy it. And one of the most touching experiences I've had here. I was delivering flowers for Miss Tapman before Valentine's Day, and I was in Crown Center delivering them. And there was a man who was an amputee, and I just came in to deliver the flower. For me, it was such a small gesture. And he started crying. I was like really taken back by it because I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, and something so small could have such a big effect on somebody. And that was definitely the turning point of my experience here, because it was just such a humbling experience, and I was like really happy to be a part of it. A lot of other things that I've learned here was definitely patience, just because of something that I've been trying to work on, especially at my Head Start last semester, and just not having to like rush around everywhere, like take your time and just stop and smell the roses, I guess. Acceptance of, because aging is something that it's going to happen to everybody, so I think that's something that I was able to take away when I was here, and still am here, that it's going to happen to all of us, so just a matter of kind of taking it with full force and knowing that it's part of life. And just guidance too. Guidance for me with like the residents, and also them guiding me, which has been a really cool experience. And next year I'll be attending the University of Vermont to study environmental studies. So thank you for having me speak.
Hello, I am Allison Rentz, also in service learning, and last semester I was at Access Women's Shelter, which is a homeless shelter for women in Akron, which was honestly life-changing. I had never actually gone out of the Hudson bubble before, and just to see this whole other world was just, it really improved me as a person. And this semester I'm actually in Hudson at Eastwoods Elementary, which is 4th and 5th grade elementary school. I am in a special education room and with 6 wonderful students, and usually I will help them with math or reading, and we do worksheets, and most of the reason I'm there is so I can kind of just hang out with them and develop relationships with them, and just like be there for if they need to talk or something, and they talk. They'll tell me things that I don't necessarily want to hear, but I'll just say okay, like that's wonderful, and they're just so full of spirit, and I've never actually worked with people with disabilities. And I'm just so glad I had this opportunity, because I can really see how they are able to do different things like problem solve, and it's just a very different experience. And I'm really glad that I had the ability to, with each student, kind of get to know who they are as a person and how each of them works, and it's just a really amazing experience. And I love the kids, and it's just sometimes I just don't want to go back to the high school because I just want to hang out with them all day. So I am going to the University of Pittsburgh, and I am planning to study physical therapy, and that's it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Have a good week.
I think, Lonnie, how many applicants do you have? Did you interview?
We had the most in service learning history and in my entire career. And for every one person who got in, 2 returned away.
Oh, wow.
I will repeat that. The most applicants in the history of the program, as long as Lonnie has been here, and for every one who applied, 1 had to be turned. Two, sorry.
For everyone that was accepted.
For everyone that was accepted, 2 had to be declined. Yes. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Okay, now we're ready for the main event. And Jim Ahern is going to introduce our speaker this morning.
I was going to ask how many folks when they were in high school had a service learning class. Nobody. Obviously, it was needed. We didn't have the opportunity, so it's great the kids do today. Today's topic and the subject is, I just realized, I learned to swim at the Bridgeport Boys Club. I don't think it was boys and girls at that time. It was only boys club. And that's where I learned to swim. And Cindy Newton is here today, and she's the Community Engagement Coordinator with the Cleveland Boys and Girls Club, or the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland. And she's going to share some information about the Boys and Girls Club, what they do, and how they influence the community in Cleveland, and actually some things about how Hudson students have been participating in the Cleveland Boys and Girls Club. A little bit about Cindy. She's been a resident for 17 years of Hudson. Member and past president of the David Hudson Questers. She served on the Hudson Railroad Depot Preservation Committee, I think with Ron, and maybe others in the group. She's an elder deacon and moderator of the Women's Association, Sunday school teacher at her church, past president and member of the East Cuyahoga County Genealogical Society. Has worked for the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland as the community engagement coordinator for 3 years. But the most important job that she has is she's the administrative assistant for Hudson Job Search, which keeps me in place, keeps me organized, and keeps the whole thing running smoothly. And so personally, I thank you very much for your involvement with us, because we wouldn't be the same without you. So, Cindy Newton.
Thank you. First, I'm going to bring up one of our kids. This is from a campaign, and I know you can't maybe all read it, but I'll hold it up and I'll talk about Richard later. I'm going to put it in front of the podium. It says gang member or gym coach. So that's a picture of Richard, and I'll tell you his story later. Don't let me forget that. All right, I guess that's at the right level. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
You can, yeah, sure. So thanks again for having me today. Just
pull it down.
Bring it down?
Yeah, sure.
A little bit. Is that better?
Yeah.
Sounds better to me anyway. Okay, thanks again for having me today. As Jim said, I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland. What that translates to is I'm the volunteer coordinator, and I work with volunteers, individual volunteers that volunteer for the Boys and Girls Club, as well as companies, churches, school groups that come in and do things with our kids. So I'd like to start out with just a little bit of the history of the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland. And we're actually a club that's associated with the Boys and Girls Club of America. The Boys and Girls Club of America is in 4 basic areas throughout the United States and actually Europe. We are in urban areas, Cleveland, Ohio, for example. We're in rural areas because, believe it or not, there's a lot of poverty in rural America. We are on 400 military bases. We're after-school programs on the military bases. And then we're also in about 200 Native American reservations throughout the United States. We serve 4 million kids during the course of the year. And we have about 4,100 clubs throughout the United States and again Europe on the military bases. As far as the actual organization, it got its start way back in 1860. You might wonder, well, you know, why did they need anything like an after-school program or a program for in this case, gentlemen and ladies, boys, originally. It was called the Dashaway Club. It started in 1860 in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was specifically about 3 women in that community felt that the boys of the community, especially the newsboys, needed some place to go, some activities in their life. The first club in Cleveland started in 1954, and it was just called the Boys Club. So sorry, ladies, it didn't become the Girls Club until a bit later. It started in Cleveland on Broadway Avenue in Cleveland in the Slavic Village area, if you know that. And it was started by a group of executives from the Republic Steel Corporation. In 1976, the Cleveland Club, was one of the first in the nation to invite the young girls to also join. It's kind of a cute story. I heard a gal speak to our board here last year that was one of those original young girls. And she was apparently sitting on the front stoop with some of her friends or girlfriends. Their brothers were invited into the club and they weren't. So they confronted the director at the time and said, "We want to be part of this club too." He was a wise man. He said, "Okay, that's a good idea." And he invited the girls in. And eventually it became the Boys and Girls Club of America and the Boys and Girls Club of Cleveland. So if we can go, Allison, to the, oh, I guess I'm in charge of that, sorry. There we go, great. So we are an after-school program. The kids come to us immediately after school, and most of our clubs, not all of them, but most of our clubs in Cleveland are open for 5 hours after school. So we provide their parents with after-school care, and I'm going to talk about some of our programs too. But as we see on this slide, for every hour a child spends in school, they spend 2 hours out of school. And it's very important that during the school year and during summer, what they do with that time out of school can make a real impact on their life. During the school year, as it states here, 15 million kids nationwide, that's 1 out of every 4, leave school with no place to go. They may go home to an empty house, they may hang on the streets, etc. And they're at risk. They're unsupervised, unguided, and obviously unsafe during this time. And 43 million kids, 3 out of every 4 in America, lack access to summer learning programs. And think about it, this is the time, those couple of months when kids, if they're not continuing to have some academic programs, etc., they're at risk for learning what they've found in that previous school year. Our young people have a safe place to go with caring adults and programs both, again, during the school year as well as during the summer. The next, I'll get this right in a minute. Okay, so our vision is to provide a world-class club experience that assures success is within reach of every young person who comes through our doors, with all members on track to graduate from high school with a plan for the future. That's very important. And demonstrating good character and citizenship, and then also living a healthy lifestyle. And our mission is listed there as to inspire and enable young people who need us most to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible adults. And I'd like to introduce you to Isabel. So Allison's going to help me with this.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm 11 years old and I'm the Boys and Girls Club member of Cleveland, Ohio. My life before I came to the club was hard. I missed so many days of school. I was struggling through reading and I didn't have no friends. But once I came to the club, then I saw that everybody started living around me and I got more into it. And also, it actually helped me with my homework. I improved. So here I have a better life. This is the only place I can act like I am me, because usually I'd have to act like the adult. I'd have to wash my sister, take care of my older brother. But when I came here, I was a child for the first time. What would I want to be when I grow up? Become a teacher or travel all across the world, then become a teacher. I just want to teach people what I learned, teach people the right steps they should make, and help what I didn't get help in. I usually come basically every day. I said this is going to be a new life for me, and it is.
So words from an 11-year-old. It's a better life, new life for her. A little bit of Isabel's story. Her mother was addicted to drugs. She and her siblings lived in homeless shelters and where they could find a place to stay. A godmother took over the family and brought the kids to the Boys and Girls Club. And this was actually videotaped probably 3-4 years ago. So Isabel's a teenager now, but she still does come to the club. I do see her, over in the club occasionally. I am in the administrative offices of the Boys and Girls Club on Broadway, and we're attached to the Broadway club. So that's Isabel's story. So she's continuing to do well, and I hope one day she does become a teacher and gets to travel around the world too a little bit. Okay. All right. We have 13 locations throughout the city of Cleveland. Our main individual sites or standalone sites would be the Broadway Club, West Side, which is near Metro General Hospital. Heights Youth Club is in Cleveland Heights. That is one of our club sites that is out of the actual city of Cleveland. King Kennedy, that's around East 59th and Woodland. Mount Pleasant is at East 131st and Union Avenue in Cleveland. Those are the standalone clubs. Each of those clubs has a gym, it has a kitchen, it has a education room, a couple education rooms normally, art room, game room with pool and ping pong and foosball and fun things like that for the kids to do. So we try and get the kids in a whole lot of activities at those clubs. The East Cleveland Club is in the East Cleveland Civic Center. We have dedicated space. Likewise, Franklin D. Roosevelt, St. Luke's Manor, and Walton. Those are all, the other three are all what we call school sites, but we have designated space that are just our club areas. The next list was school sites. We utilize those schools' classrooms and gym and media center and things like that, but we don't have a dedicated space just for our club. So again, we are an after-school program. Obviously, we find if we're in a school building, we don't have the overhead of the maintenance and everything that goes with owning a building. So traditionally, the Boys and Girls Clubs of America are looking at more and more going into school sites to do the after-school programming. The other plus to that is the children don't have to transition from their school building. For example, the first 5 that are listed up there, the kids have to come to a club. The schools don't transport the children. We can't afford to transport the children, so they have to get there on their own. In most cases, it's only a few blocks, but we've had children that have actually taken 2 buses to get to a Boys and Girls Club from their school because they want to come, they want to be part of our programs. The children, likewise, have to get home on their own. We don't transport them. Again, we can't afford it. Generally, we're within walking distance of their homes. But imagine a winter night, it starts getting dark at 5, and I'm a 6-year-old kid, okay, because our kids range in age from 6 to 18. We try and encourage them to move on and go home before it gets dark, to go in groups, etc. We do, of course, have children whose parents pick them up. It does happen too, but that's just the reality. The children have to get there and they have to go home on their own. Okay. Okay. We impact about 7,200 youth throughout the city of Cleveland every year. On an average daily basis, we have about 800 kids within our clubs. Our school sites have a lesser number of kids generally. Our club sites, the designated club sites, average about 100 to 125 children on a daily basis. Okay. Here's a little breakdown of the way the clubs are. About 84% African American, 12% Hispanic. Our West Side Club around West 25th is our larger Hispanic community because that's who lives in the neighborhood. And I always, when I have volunteers, I've had occasional volunteers who are taking Spanish in high school or college, and they always go, that'd be a great place to go to practice my Spanish. And it is, because a lot of the kids, as well as the staff, are fluent in Spanish. We are currently at about 61% male members and about 39% females. The last 2 figures, a little over 72% of our children live in a single-parent household. Often that parent is a working parent of sometimes more than 1 job, often 2 jobs. So we are a great care system for those parents. You know, if my child gets out of school at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I have to work till 6 or 7, where can my child go? I don't want them going home. I don't want them to be alone at home. Don't want them out on the streets where they definitely will get in trouble. So the club is a great alternative. And about 91% of our kids, because we are in the city of Cleveland, live at or near the poverty level. Okay, we have some core areas that
that are part of our programming, and this is throughout the Boys and Girls Club of America, not just in Cleveland. Academic success is extremely important to us. We want to make sure that all of our children do well in school. We encourage them to bring their report cards in when the report cards come out quarterly, to take a look at them and give them a pat on the back. We need programming that helps children transition from middle school to high school and then helps them plan for their future. Am I going to college? Am I going to get some sort of certification or training? They have to be ready for the 21st century. They've got to have those kind of skills. And in 2013, I'm proud to say 94% of our regularly attending high school seniors graduated on time. Now, if you stop and think about what the figures are for the Cleveland schools, which is about 50, maybe plus % that graduate, 94% is a huge number, okay? Some of the programs that we do with the kids, and I'll talk about these a little bit more. One is called Spark. It's a 6 to 9-year-old reading and math program. We do programs with our children as far as thinking about what kind of career they want to have, what kind of college that would take to get that education for that career. And then our teen staff often take them on college campus tours. And not just local, we try and get them out of the city and not necessarily out of the state, but certainly out of the city. One of our other core programs is our character and citizenship. And we want to make sure the kids are part of their community and give back to the community. We have one program called the Keystone Club, that's for the high school kids, and they actively get involved in the community, not just within the club, but outside. They might do help in the community gardens, they may go to other schools and help out. We want to make them realize that being an adult in my community and a responsible adult is participating. And 67% of the teens surveyed have volunteered at least more than once a year. I have a lot of young people who volunteer within the clubs as well. Healthy lifestyles. We want to motivate the kids to make sure they live a healthy lifestyle. And that's not just nutrition and health education, but avoiding risky behaviors, why I don't want to be on drugs, why I don't want to smoke, etc. And make a lifelong commitment to fitness. And a large percentage of our kids on a daily basis get run around time in the gyms. You ought to come and play basketball with some of our kids and see how good you are. They're pretty active. Okay. All right. Here's a little bit about our supporters. We have had a campaign going on for the last 3 years, and we've raised, I think our next slide shows, we've raised close to $11 million of a $15-16 million campaign. We get a lot of our money from foundations and grants and trusts, excuse me. So we do special events. One of the special events is coming up in June. It's a race for kids at the Cleveland Zoo. It's a 5K run and a 1K family walk. We raise about $165,000 every year from that. We have another event in the fall, which is called Shazam. That's our gala dinner dance, similar to something you do with auction items, etc. And last year, I think we raised about $175,000. We also have some golf outings throughout the year that also help fund us. We have government grants, United Way allocations, board members, but the very last thing that says membership dues, I always like to talk about that, because what that is the dues that the kids pay to be part of the club. And that is $10. That's $10 a year. Not a week, not a month, but $10 a year. And what it provides is all the activities that the kids can be involved in, which can include field trips, etc. It includes a meal on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. And we figure out that it's about $3,800 per child is what they get in their experiences within the club, all for $10. It's a tiny amount of our total budget, obviously, but we also feel that makes the kids and their families feel that they're part of the club. They paid their dues and they belong. We often do scholarships for the children. I know you think $10, what's $10? But for a family who's struggling, might even live in a homeless shelter, they may not be able to come up with the $10. So we also scholarship children. Oops. Did I do something?
No, you're fine.
Okay. And here's a little bit of our financials and how they've increased since 2009. We have opened 3 clubs in the last really 2 years, and that costs a lot more money. So that's what we're trying to reach out to the community and be in more places for our youth. Okay, here's a list of some of our partners. Obviously, the school district, we partner with them, as well as the charter schools, public and as well as charter. Cleveland Food Bank, I can't say enough for the Cleveland Food Bank. They provide the food that we give the kids every day. 5 days a week, we serve a meal. The food's already prepared. We're very grateful for that, because we don't have to hire staff to prepare the food. It's delivered to our clubs, we heat it up and serve it to the children. We also have 2 clubs that are open on Saturdays for about 4 hours, and we also provide a meal for them too. We partner with the Cleveland Museum of Art, for example. About a year ago, we had a challenge amongst our youth in their artwork, and there was a little contest, and the winners had their artwork framed and matted and hung in the Cleveland Museum of Art. Can anybody here say that they had their artwork in the Cleveland Museum of Art? I know I can. So this was exciting. You know, we had a reception for the kids and their families. We're doing a similar thing this year at the PNC Bank downtown next month. And it's a great way for the kids to be inspired with their artwork. We work with Shoes and Clothes for Kids, for example. Quarterly, they bring in brand new clothes, brand new shoes, and we can do distributions to our children. Very important for them. Going down towards the bottom, we partner again with a lot of the colleges. The kids come and volunteer for us. We can send our children to the different colleges and do programming. And you might wonder why I put Cleveland sports teams, but we're always grateful for tickets to sporting events, and we do get them, and we can take our kids to them. The Cleveland Indians donated $1 million last year for our programming, and I'm going to let Paul Dolan tell you a little bit about what the club means to him.
Paul may not be able to make it.
I mean, he's not here today, maybe.
He's busy today. I'm not sure why this one's not.
We escape it.
That might have been the topic. Yep, there's.
Always lets you go. Pretty elusive.
I think he's in spring trade.
Okay. He's out of town. Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and
we'll move on.
Keep working
okay.
on it. Yep.
Sure. He'll suddenly interrupt my speech, won't he? Okay. I also like to give thanks to our women's board. We have an auxiliary women's board as well as a bridge board, which is our young professionals group. This is a big trend, getting young professionals in the business world involved in volunteer activities. And both groups raise funds through a variety of ways. The women's board always does a fashion show and lunch. And our bridge board does a wine tasting and then a tailgate party in the fall. And they have combined raised on a yearly basis probably about $40,000 in scholarship funds for our youth. Helps our kids go to college. The women's board does it for seniors who are graduating and going to college. Our bridge board does it for young people that are in college. Because let's face it, great, I get all this money up front, for my first year, and then I have nothing, So it helps them stay in school. It's very important. Okay. I guess we'll give up on Paul.
Okay.
All right. All right. Oops. All right. Again, what we provide, quality after-school programs. I mentioned Spark. This is for, again, the 6 to 9-year-olds. It's a reading and math literacy program. And you might think, oh, why would kids want to do this after they've been in school all day? But we do it in a fun way, creative way, games, art activities, things like that, to help the children continue to progress in their reading skills in particular. And a lot of math is reading-based. If you are aware, the state of Ohio has now mandated that all 3rd graders have to pass a test to be passed on to the 4th grade, a reading test. And unfortunately, a lot of our children are not getting the help at home that they need. You'd be surprised how really few children go to programs like Head Start to get that start for their schooling in the city of Cleveland. So anything we can do to help improve the numbers for these kids and their abilities to read is important to us. We have something called Power Hour. We do this in the clubs Monday through Friday. When the kids first come to a club, again grown, we expect them to do their homework, to get help with homework, tutoring, things like that. So that first hour of the day, because you're never going to get them back to finish their homework. You need to do it, when they first get there. And then they can go out and, what I say, go play. They can have fun. I already talked about basic needs, the hot meals, and for some of our kids, this meal that we serve in the afternoon is really important. A lot of the kids in the Cleveland schools get a breakfast and get a lunch, and if they come to us, they essentially get a dinner. And I'm not saying every child needs this food and is not going to be served another meal or could have another meal that evening, but there are numbers of our children who this will be the last food they get today, okay? And it's because they just don't have the food at home. Their cupboards are bare, their refrigerators are bare, so it helps the families out that way. Again, we try and help them with shoes and clothes throughout the year, as well as school uniforms, because I don't know how many of you know this. Even public schools today in Cleveland, you wear a uniform, whether it's khaki pants or dark pants, girls and boys, light colored polo, white shirt, that sort of thing. They all wear a uniform. I personally think the most important thing here is it's a safe place for our kids to be. After school, again, they're not going home to an empty house, hanging out on the streets. The number one problem for our teens especially is being out on the streets. And they're surrounded by caring adults, the staff, the volunteers, etc. And if we can get Xavier to talk, we'll let him tell his story. So we'll try and click on Xavier now.
My favorite subject is science. What I want to be when I grow up is a chemical engineer. I like all the cool experiments. I want to study bad chemicals so we can fix them. Like pollution, that's just disgusting. I used to just come home and sit around, but now I come here almost every day. My favorite thing to do at the club is to play basketball with the teens because I like to play them. I get to learn from my mistakes. If I couldn't play basketball here, I'd still come because there's a lot of stuff for me to still do. I play pool, go to the art room, computer lab, play foosball, go to the game room. I told a lot of people and they started coming. That was crazy.
I'm glad you got to hear Xavier. Paul Dolan's interesting too, but Xavier's cuter. Okay, so 1 or 2 more slides. These are just some of our campaign leadership, some of the names, the local names, and I like the Browns mascot there. I think he's kind of cute with our kids. And I mentioned that we have a fundraising Save Our Kids program, and again, we've raised almost $11 million, about 66% of our goal. We did get a gift of $1 million from Taco Bell. I like to thank them too, because what we're using that money for is our teen programming. We're improving all the teen centers within the clubs. I've seen a great uptick in teen attendance at our Broadway club ever since we fixed it all up. Special teen area, computers, new tables, game tables, TVs, things like that for the kids. And that really is so important, because if you lose your teens, You know, those are the kids that are going to end up in prison. We, again, successfully opened 3 new clubs, increased weekly hours, and have added some weekend hours in a couple of our clubs. All right. And some opportunities for involvement. I always like to do this because I am the volunteer coordinator. We have volunteer opportunities for any of your employees. If you're out there and have companies and want to involve them, and that can be just a done in a day. You know, come and do some volunteering. We really encourage company groups to come and just spend time with the kids. Shoot a little pool, you know, play a little basketball, whatever it is. Just, you know, be in the art room, read to a child, whatever. It doesn't have to be a huge service project, although we do accept those that help too. There's certainly board opportunities and opportunities for young professionals. Obviously, we have annual program support, donation to our Save Our Kids campaign, and any event support. Now, I want to, Jim mentioned it, talk about the connection with Hudson. The Hudson football team a couple years ago, through the guidance of Mary Lee Mendler and Coach Wright from the school, got involved with our club in 2 different ways. They have done the last 2 years a coat drive at one of their football games every fall. And the last 2 years we've received over 200 gently used or new coats. I give credit to fussy cleaners in town because they actually took all those coats and cleaned them all. Then we deliver them to our children, and you can't imagine how excited they are to get to what to them is a new coat. And it keeps them warm, you know, obviously too. The other thing the Hudson football team and the super fans and the Hudson football boosters have done is raise funds amongst themselves to come every holiday, and they pay for big giant inflatables and a popcorn machine and a photo booth at our Broadway club, and the kids have a great holiday event. Again, thanks to Main Street Cupcakes, #1, and also Joann's, because Joann's gives us a craft. You can imagine what Main Street Cupcakes gives us is a whole lot of cupcakes for the kids. And they just have a great day, and we can't do it without those young people and their parents and the rest of the boosters that are part of that. I said I would talk about Richard, didn't I? Okay, so y'all saw Richard's picture. Oh, Richard's over here. I love to tell this story. I wish I had Richard's video too. But Richard was a club kid. He has been in our club since he was very young, 6, 7 years old. Richard's story is he grew up in a obviously a bad part of Cleveland, around East 55th and Woodland. He had the club to go to, which was a good thing, because Richard's father is in jail, his brother's in jail, he's got an uncle in jail. And Richard, in his video, will talk about how he could have ended up that way too, except for the club. And in the club he found good male role models, because he did not have that in his life. And so, question, gang member or gym coach? Well, you can imagine what he became. He became a gym coach for us at one of our sites, at our West Side site. And then about a year and a half ago, he got promoted to, and he's attended Baldwin Wallace, he's almost done with getting his degree. He became the assistant director at our Mount Pleasant Club about a year and a half ago. And I would say within the last 6 months, he became the club director at our King Kennedy site, back in the neighborhood where he grew up. So he's now helping children within his own neighborhood and being a good role model for them. So that's all I have today. I appreciate your time and attention, and would welcome conversation with you afterwards. There's my email if you want to reach out to me, and we appreciate your listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was on, what, about 3 hours notice? That
A little bit.
maybe a little bit more. Thank you so very much. Very informative. We are out of time, so I'm just going to do Rotabucks. And Cindy, while you're on your feet.
Oh. The winning ticket. You can read the last 4 digits. Oh, without the glasses. Oh dear.
774.
774. And that would be Denrich. Rodebuck payout is $11. The jackpot is $300. Ta-da!
Come on, Dan.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Yes, you have that.